David, thanks again for joining me for our Thought Leader Spotlight series.
No problem, man. No problem.
Yeah, I'm your head of partnerships, Matt Camp, for DealMachine. On these, we really like to shine a spotlight on industry experts like yourself, ask about your inspiring stories, about your lessons learned, about the journey you've been through and the things that you've learned. So really excited to have on David Dodge today. He's a St. Louis-based investor, so it's great to have real FaceTime for these.
That's right.
Haven't done one of those yet. I know you've been an investor for how long at this point?
Man, I've been investing in real estate for 17 years.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, and I know you have like 700 plus flips or wholesales. 60 plus in your active portfolio. So this guy knows what he's talking about. I know you have a ton of awesome content out there too. Like I love your stuff, from everything from like freewholesalecourse.com to your podcast, YouTube channel, Instagram.
Man, I used to have fun making content.
Yeah,
you named it. That's it. Yeah, there's there's something else out there.
Yeah,
a couple books actually. Yeah. Man, we got 3 of them. Look at this. We got the Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate. We got the Burr Method. Yeah. And then we got the 3 Pillars of Wholesaling Real Estate. So yeah, a couple books here as well, guys.
Love it. So today I'm going to cover a few things, just really kind of pretty broadly about real estate, how to find deals, how to fund them.
Let's do it, man.
All the basics there.
This is all I do every day.
I was going to say, yeah.
This is going to be easy for me, man. Let's roll. Love
it. To start with, though, can you tell us more about your journey, how you got into it?
Absolutely, man. All that? Absolutely. So, it was one of these things where I got into real estate investing actually in college. So I'm 36. I'll be 37 actually in like 2 months here. I'm getting old. But I started when I was 20, Matt. Yeah. I was 20 years old. And I'm so happy that I did. I'm so incredibly happy that I did. And the first thing that I did was I house hacked. Right? Because it's kind of the easiest way to go about getting into being a landlord. Like the easiest thing I think for anybody to do would probably be to learn how to wholesale, learn how to market to motivated sellers, use contracts. You don't need any money necessarily to buy the house. You need some money to market, but you don't need money to buy the house, right? To flip it with wholesaling. But what I started with was actually house hacking. So if you're not familiar with house hacking, it's where you go buy a property and you live in one of the bedrooms and you rent out the other bedrooms, or maybe you do it to a duplex or a quad and you live in one of the units and you rent out the other units. Well, I started out with a 4-bedroom single-family home.
Yep, I believe that's what David did as well.
I think he might have.
David Lecker, our CEO.
Yeah. So I started with one 4-bedroom house, lived in one room, and rented out 3 others. And it didn't pay the mortgage completely, but it brought my rent down to like $100 a month.
Yeah, not bad.
Which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I did it again in college 2 more times. So by the time I graduated from college, I had 3 properties that were rentals. And for the most part, I did that, for 10 years, like basically where I would buy about 1 a year. And, and over the course of college, I didn't do it my first 2 years. So I basically got 3 over the last 2. And then over the next 8 years, I basically got another 8 houses. So in the first 10 years of my investing, I wasn't a very good investor. It was very passive. Right. I was going to the MLS. I was using real estate agents to find these properties. And I was paying full retail. Now, I'm really happy I did it, of course, because I had the rentals. But I did it the wrong way. And the reason I say that, Matt, is because I was paying full retail. And, I'm terrible at saving money. I was then, I am now today, right? But I like real estate because it allows me to park my money into an asset that somebody else pays off, and it provides cash flow. And I barely pay any taxes because of all the depreciation that I get on all the rental properties that I have. So for the most part, yeah, man, I've been at this game for like 17 years. I think I've been full-time at it for 7. And in the last 7 years, I've flipped about 700 houses.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
And basically what happened 7 years ago that separated like the first half of my investing to the second half is it's so simple. I learned about motivated sellers. I didn't even know they existed in the first 10 years. During that first 10 years, I was working at different sales and marketing jobs, and I had different businesses with friends, selling products online or building websites, just totally random stuff. And for the most part, like I think when I turned about 30, I'm like, man, I got to figure this out. Like these bouncing around with all these different, things isn't really going to make me wealthy. And in college, you know, I had taken a bunch of classes. Like my emphasis in college was actually real estate investing.
Really?
You know, it was a personal financial planning degree with emphasis in real estate. How crazy. Like the business school didn't have a real estate thing.
That's so
But
wild.
the financial planning division,
Yeah.
you know, did. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go that way. And basically I learned all about real estate investing, you know, in college. That's kind of where it all started. But I didn't do it right away. You know, it took me about 10 years to realize that this is something that I really want to do day in, day out. And I want to do it full time. And, you know, at the age of about 37 years ago, I just started reading, man. I read like 100 books in a year. And I literally like took, I wouldn't say a whole year off, but I probably took like 6 months off. Like I closed down the business that I had going. And I was just trying to figure out, you know, where do I fit in? Should I become an agent? Should I get my broker's license? Should I become an investor? Well, then, you know, what kind of investor? Like so many different types. Like, do I want to be the wholesaler? Do I want to be the landlord? Do I want to be the fix and flip guy? Do I want to do the creative, you know, lease options and sub-twos and all that kind of stuff? Do I want to, you know, what do I want to do? And basically I started reading and I learned that there are these people out there that are referred to as motivated sellers, Matt. And these motivated sellers like are willing to give you a big discount on their property if you can help them solve a problem and or provide them conveniences. And that's really that simple. And I'm like, holy cow, so this light bulb went off. And I'm like, man, I'm great at talking to people. I love sales. I love marketing. And I really wanted to try to do anything in the real estate sphere. And I didn't really ever have the desire to be an agent. I'm still not an agent today, right? I don't have my license to, you know, to be an agent. But at the same time, I dove in head first, right? And I just started marketing. And, you know, it probably took me 3 months to get a deal, maybe even 3.5 months. You know, it took a couple months to find that deal. But then once I had my first deal under my belt, I did like 2 or 3 more like the next month. And then ever since then, I've basically consistently done, you know, 80 to 100 deals a year. I mean, we're recording this in July right now.
Yeah.
And I've already done like 100.
Busy summer.
I've already done like 160 flips this year.
Wow.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
I mean, that's what, you know, the fact that that's not uncommon with a lot of people I talk to about
Oh,
this.
yeah,
is
absolutely.
Like when you get that first deal under your belt,
Oh, man.
you learn
the
so much.
confidence.
Yeah, and the confidence too.
Yeah.
And it's fun to hear you talk about, like, you even went through formal training through college, like you paid for that education.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still
Like 80 grand.
Yeah, exactly. It's not cheap, man.
Man.
Yeah,
it's a
Mizzou,
lot.
right?
Yeah,
Mizzou's not cheap.
MU. Yep.
For sure. But if you do, even through that, like, you know, you said you still weren't fully necessarily personally invested until 10 years later.
10 years later.
And through that, I mean, there's so many different niches you can jump into. You took time off of work. Like, it seemed like getting over that hump and just getting that first deal done was what drove you to be able to give
Absolutely.
you
It was learning. It was,
you know?
yeah, the confidence. Yeah, absolutely. It was learning that like you don't have to save 20%. Excuse me, and then go walk into a bank and get approved for a loan and then find an agent and then find a deal. That's what I had done 11 or 12 times basically over the first 10 years.
With those house
Yeah, and you're limited. Like you can't do that every 3 days because you're run out of money after one deal. Like 20% down on a $150,000 property is 30 grand. So that's literally what I did the first. I think I had 11 houses basically when I went full time. Let's just call it 11. So I basically had like saved 30 grand roughly, 25 to 30 grand, 11 different times, and went and got a loan and found the property and paid full retail and agents were involved and the seller pays the agent typically, so that didn't matter to me, but I was still paying full price. And again, I told you earlier, I'm terrible at saving money, so to me it was like, hey, this is a great place to park it. I love spending it.
Right.
So why not save a little or as much as I can and then spend it on that? Because it's not really like gone. It's growing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's kind of how it got started. And then when I learned about wholesaling, I'm like, wait a minute, you're telling me that I can use contracts to gain control of properties and basically sell them without buying them? So I don't have to go save $30,000. That's a ton of money, right? Yeah. $30,000 to be able to go buy a property, and you know, and basically some of the mentors that I had at the time, and all the books that I was reading, and podcasts just like this one here, We're like, yeah, man, you can do that. You just have to learn that this is a marketing business first and foremost.
Yep.
I'm going to repeat myself. This is a marketing business. So it took me 3 months to like really, really, really understand that. And what do I mean by that? Well, I would maybe spend an hour or two a day like cold calling or like looking at properties, but I wasn't very active. I wasn't like making that many calls or scheduling that many appointments, and really I wasn't sending that many offers, And then after about, 2 months, I hired some mentors, and they were just like, David, this is a marketing business. So like if you want to flip houses or specifically wholesale houses, you need to talk to a lot of people every day. And if you're not willing to do that, then you need to hire some virtual assistants or somebody on your team that can.
Yep.
And I do both, right, at this point. So we have multiple VAs that help with the business. And, I'm in the office right now getting ready to call people. So
there you go.
That's what it all comes down to.
What you preach. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, and do you think hiring that mentor was a big turning point for you as well?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I have mentors. Like I'm in 2 or 3 masterminds that are, 10, 15, 20 grand a year to be a part of. And I typically always have 1 or 2 coaches, and I do coaching.
Yep.
Right. So, to me, coaching, you can avoid hiring a coach, but you're gonna shorten your time to success tenfold if you do hire a coach. Right. So my advice to anybody and everybody that's listening, I'm 7 years in full time, 17 years total, 700 deals under my belt, 60 plus rental properties, and I have a coach.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like I always want to be better, and I always want to learn the next thing, and I don't want to spend 10 years. Basically, think about it that way. I spent 10 years
trying to
figure it out, and I didn't. And then finally, I'm like, you know what? Let's quit my job, jump in full time, and then even after that, it took me 2 months before I said, all right, I'm not getting it. Like something's not clicking. I went and hired a mentor. Still talk to him to this day. He's a great friend of mine. And he told me what I'm going to tell you guys right now. He said, David, this is a marketing business. He's like, you think you're a real estate investor whenever you're, setting appointments and making offers, but you're really not, because you're not taking on any risk. He's like, do you have intentions of buying these houses that you're calling on right now? And I go, well, if they're good rentals, sure. But I'm really just trying to learn how to flip them. And he was like, okay, cool. So take off that real estate investor hat, just temporarily, right? And put on that marketer hat. And I was like, okay. I didn't really understand what that meant, but I was just like, okay. And I was like, okay, well, what do we do next? And he was like, well, let's start marketing. And at the time, 7 years ago, I don't even know if DealMachine was here and around, but I was doing some driving for dollars, but it was the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Just writing it down.
Addresses. Yeah.
Yeah, and literally what I would do is I'd bring a stack of envelopes with me, and I would just write the address on the envelope so I didn't have to do it twice.
Yeah.
And I started doing that, and I started sending direct mail. And at the time, again, that was 7 years ago, I didn't really have a whole lot of other sorts of marketing. Like now, driving for dollars is one of our favorite ways to go about getting deals, but we're also cold calling, we're doing cold texting, we're sending direct mail. Sometimes we'll put radio ads up from time to time. We have an AdWords campaign that helps bring in leads, tons of networking, tons of leads that we get from just our community and our network.
Yep.
So we have a lot of different ways of going about doing that at this point. But when I first started, I wasn't doing much. I was just cold calling. And that mentor, that coach, Matt, he was basically like, this is a marketing business. What's your marketing plan? And I'm like, an hour a day of cold calling? And he was like, that's not a plan.
Yeah.
That's just you dabbling.
Yep.
And he's like, if you want to cold call, I need to see you doing that for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Or you need to spend some money to get your phone to ring. And that's the secret. You want to know the secret sauce of this business? I tell this to all my students, Matt. At the end of the day, no matter what marketing you're doing, you're either calling them or they're calling you, period. Think about it. So like some people will argue, oh, that's not true. Like what if you have a website? Well, that's fine. They fill out a form and then you get an email. And then what do? You call them, right?
Right.
If you put an ad on the radio, they call you. I mean, no matter what, at the end of the day, it's either you call them or they call you. So he simplified, he ultra simplified it. And he said, so either you call a bunch of people every day that you presume to have some motivation, or you do the marketing and put the message out into the universe that you're willing to buy houses and solve problems for people and that they should call you. And I started doing both.
That's
so I think
awesome.
my first month, I think I maybe spent, which is a lot for most people, I get it. I think I maybe spent $1,700 on my marketing. And by the way, I was $62,000 in the hole. I was in debt. I had $62,000 of credit card debt.
Man.
So anybody that's listening and says, I don't have $1,700, I didn't either, guys. I was $62,000 in the hole.
Yeah, wrong way.
And I said, you know what, though? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. I'm not just going to, like, continue to dabble for 2 more months or 10 more years, essentially, right? And he was like, I'm telling you, this when you spend money on marketing, it's going to feel like an expense for a month or 2 or 3 or maybe 4. But once you start doing deals, it's an investment. It actually, it changes. Like, it's still money going out of your account, but you're investing money. So now, it's a return. So now whenever I go spend $2 or $3,000, or some months I'll spend 6 or 8, you know, we'll see that come back like 3 or 4 or 5-fold. You know, so yes, it's an expense, but you got to reframe the way you think, and instead of thinking of it as an expense, think of it more as an investment in your business. And that's what it is, man. That's all this business is, Matt. So, like, here's the thing. My passion is landlording. I want to get up to like 150, maybe even 250 houses. This time last year, I had 90. And I had to sell a bunch off to pay off a bunch of bad debts and buy some partners out. And I'm back up to 60 already.
I was going to say, you're already going there.
I'll be back up there, no problem. Give me another maybe 2 years and I'll be at 150. That's really my passion. But finding good landlord plays all starts with the marketing. So when I say that, like, you know, I've done, not just me as David, but like me and my partners and my team. You know, my team. Yeah, you always gotta throw credit at the team, man. I'm not a one-man show. It just doesn't work that way. But we have essentially successfully flipped or wholesaled, the same thing, but we've flipped 700 houses, and we didn't really like ever have the goal of like 7 years ago being like, oh, let's try to like flip like 500 or 700 houses. It was always like, let's build the portfolio. And what we do is it's kind of catchy, but we keep the best and we wholesale the rest. Yeah. It's simple.
Yep.
And it's kind of like our little slogan, like our tagline or our slogan like here at the office. But it rings so true. Like, we have a buy box and we market all over the area. And the ones that meet the buy box, we cherry pick those deals. Those are the ones that we keep. Everything else that comes in, that's a deal, but it may not be something that we want to flip ourselves, or maybe not be something that we want to, you know, take down and hold as a rental, or maybe it's something that we don't want to invest, you know, in that neighborhood or whatever. We still contract it at a great price. And then we just turn around and we just sell it at a good price, and that's it. It's that simple. Yeah. It's so simple.
That's awesome. So, yeah, that's what I was going to mention when you're talking through thinking like a marketer. Just, you know, even for us, when we see the most successful DealMachine members, they're not just relying on one marketing method. They're doing what you're talking about, full marketing mix. They are driving for dollars and identify like physical distress, just because, I mean, you can just buy a list and market to that list, but in terms of the return on your investment, you need a way higher marketing budget, way more leads, deal with way less qualified conversations probably, just because you're trading your money for your time, where you're not actually going out there and driving or having someone else drive for you, but you're just buying a list and just kind of blanketing that list, you know? Whereas we see when you go out and drive for dollars, it only takes on average, about 300 leads or so to land that first deal, at least in the Midwest.
On average, you know? But like for somebody that's like really good at the business, like half of that.
Yeah, their close rate's really high.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, like I was telling my students the other day, like I only typically run like 4 appointments to do a deal. Now we screen the appointments, we disqualify ourselves as we qualify them as being motivated, but here's something that people always they tend to forget. We disqualify ourselves as being retail buyers too. Yeah. Period. Like, I almost lead with that. Hey, I'm Dave with House Sold Easy. You know, I'd love to buy your house, but I don't pay retail. Yep. Period. Like, then I have an awkward pause. And if they're like, oh, well, I'm looking for retail, it's like, cool, I'm not the guy for you then. Yeah. But if they're like, yeah, it's okay, we get that, you don't need some work. Awesome. When can I see it? It's that simple. You know, like, disqualify yourself as being the retail buyer, qualify them as having some sort of motivation, which typically is really just a problem that our convenience will help with, right? So, I mean, that's, like, let's break this down for anybody that's maybe listening or watching this, Matt, that's like new, right? Like, you know, that's really all it is. Like, wholesalers, in my opinion, provide liquidity to the marketplace. That's what they do. They provide liquidity to the marketplace. Now, I've taken a step above that, and you're talking about investors, right? All investors typically do is trade a discount for convenience, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. The seller trades the discount, of course, but the investor just brings in convenience. So, like, what people are thinking? Well, what do you mean, Dave? What are the conveniences? Well, it's so simple. I like to categorize them into basically three things, right? Cash, and here's the cool part: it's rarely my cash. It's usually borrowed. You know, the purchase price and the rehab is typically borrowed, but it's cash. When I go to close on a property, I'm not, having contingencies from a bank. I'm getting it directly from a private lender or a hard money lender, so I can close that deal quick, right? So number one is cash. Number two is quick, and this is relative. So, relatively speaking, quick, when you're dealing with real estate, a month, 2 to 3 weeks is typically what we can do for a seller, is extremely fast. If you're going the traditional route and you're going with agents and brokerages and the MLS, maybe up until recently where we have a super crazy shortage of inventory, but like over the last 7 years, I feel like the average time it takes to sell a property on the MLS is 3 to 4 months. So whenever I come in, I say I can do it in 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
That's essentially like a fifth of the time, a fourth or fifth of the time. So quick, right? Relatively speaking, but quick. So cash, quick, and then the last thing is as important as the other two, but as is, and that's it. That's the conveniences that I offer. So what is the as is? If you're wondering, it's simple, guys. They don't have to clean. They don't have to paint. They don't have to fix anything. They don't have to do anything. If they don't even live in the state and they don't even have a key to the house, no problem. I'll go over there. I'll get a locksmith. I'll secure it. I'll put a lockbox on it. I'll take photos and send to them. Let them feel like they're,
That's
being
the problem
educated. Yeah, that's the problem solving, and that I'm here to help them, right? And then from there, we will make them a very low offer, but we're going to justify that low offer as not only being low, because it is, but also as fair. And that's a big difference, I think, between a lot of the new people and a lot of the people that, are out doing 100+ deals a year is, those who have experience, confidence, you had mentioned that earlier. Confidence obviously helps a ton. But, you put me up against a new guy, and I will probably be able to get a lower price on the deal than they will. And the only reason is because I'm really good at justifying that the offer is a fair offer, right? So I don't ever approach, the seller as, hey, this is me versus you. Oh, you want 80? Well, I'm only going to give you 60. No, that's a terrible way to go about it.
You're on the same team.
Yeah, instead just say, hey, we're on the same team here. So it's me and you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, not versus each other, but instead versus the marketplace. So if the marketplace says that these houses are worth 80, but you need 30 grand in repairs, well, that means that I'm going to have to be even less than 50 to make a profit. So ideally, I'm going to be at 25 or 30 to be able to make that work. And I'll explain it out. And then I'll also say, I'm not just a guy trying to buy your house. I'm also a flipper. I'm also a landlord. And we all work on the same equation. And I'll write the equation down. It's the MAO formula.
Be very transparent.
Oh, my God. So transparent. So I'll be like, so if you want to go call the next 4 or 5 guys behind me, ask them what formula they use. They're going to probably use this one. And they're probably not going to be as transparent as I am, because my goal isn't necessarily to buy your house today. It's to make a friend with you, which a lot of people don't take that approach.
And I feel like it comes through how genuine you are around all of that.
Thank
Like
you.
you're actually coming in with that mindset of, I want to help this person solve their problem.
Absolutely.
And you're not just lowballing people. You're saying like, hey, here's, like you said, us against the market. Here's what the market's saying right now. Here's how we can make a fair deal by both of us winning.
Yeah, and any investor that comes in before me or after me is going to be around this number. Here's why. Here's what we think it's going to be worth. Here's what the repairs are. Here's the discount rate that we're going to use. And we have to make a profit. Like definition of business is the act of making money. People often forget that. So on that topic, when I'm on the phone with the seller, I'll tell them straight up, I don't need to buy your house. And a lot of my students are like, why would you ever tell that to a seller? Because I'm disqualifying myself as being a retail buyer. So let me say that again, guys. I don't need to buy your house. But I always follow it up with, but I would love to if you will give me a good deal on it. but I don't need to. So I'm not going to chase you around town for a bad deal. But if you want to give me a good deal, and what do I define as a good deal? Minimum of 20% discount. Minimum. And at 20%, it's hard to wholesale. But I can buy and use the BRRRR method and refinance into a rental, none of my own money, at a 20% discount. Ideally, I'm looking for a 30 to 50% discount, right? And typically, the more repairs the property needs, the easier it is to justify that bigger discount.
Makes sense.
So,
I do know I loved your where you're saying, hey, buy the best, wholesale the rest, and the buy box you talked about. Can you kind of break down that criteria?
Absolutely.
How to come up with your own criteria?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just because I've been in the game like 16, 17 years.
You've done so many different niches.
I've done a lot of different things.
approaches.
Yeah. I just know like, hey, there's certain parts of town that I don't want to be a landlord in. Right. And when I say buy box, it's really two things. So the wholesaling is just kind of a means to an end. The wholesaling business isn't a flipping business. It's a marketing business, right? The flipping just kind of comes with the territory, right? But really the wholesaling is a marketing business. That's really where it starts. So when we're marketing, Matt, we're always marketing for two things: our own rentals or our own flips. Like meaning that we will, take that marketer hat off and put the investor hat on, meaning we're going to buy it, we're going to take risk, we're going to fix it up, and then we're going to flip it. And that takes months typically to do all those things, right? But that's what we're looking for. So our buy box is to find Dave and Mike or House Sold Easy, some local rental properties and some local fix and flip deals. That's really where it starts. And we're in St. Louis, Missouri, and we don't do anything virtual at this point. It's just here in our own backyard. So whenever we're doing all of our marketing, we're looking for, when it comes to flips, something close by, man, something that's like 20 to 30 minutes away. I don't want to drive 2 hours. And I don't like to buy properties that need more work than the cost of the purchase. So like I don't want to buy a house. I don't want to buy a property that's like 20 grand that needs 120, right? But I will happily buy a property at 120 that needs 20, right? So I like to have the repairs make sense. I don't mind if we go and spend. We've done $300,000 repair projects before, but the house was worth 800. Right. So that's a big factor in there. So when it comes to the flips, close by, not too hard, and we want to have a decent profit margin, like at least a 20% profit margin. Like typically try to make 40 to 50 grand on a good flip, right? When it comes to the rental properties, we typically look to have 20% equity. We typically look to have at least $300 in cash flow. We don't always get that, but that's what we shoot for. Same thing though. We also don't want to be driving more than like 20 or 30 minutes, and we're right in the middle here in Brentwood. Right, you're familiar, but anybody that's not a St. Louis guy, like we were like right dead middle center of the city, so any direction is game. We don't like buying in war zones. I mean, we'll buy in C-class neighborhoods, A, B, and C, of course. A is hard to come by, but we have some. But B and C all day. But we don't really like to go below a C-class neighborhood just because you're going to have bad schools, you're going to just have high crime. And it's just one of these things where it's like, I personally don't like a rental that doesn't bring in $900 a month.
Is that your threshold?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I mean, we'll go below that, but I like to see $900 a month. Now, if it's like a 4 unit and they're all 1 beds, you're not going to get $900 per unit, right? But most of our rentals are single family homes. We have some multis, most are single families. But when we're talking specifically single family, I want to see $900 a month in rent. I want to see 20 grand in captured equity, and I'd like to see $300 a month in cash flow. And that's it. That's the buy box, man. It's pretty simple. Yeah. Not too big, not too small, not too weird.
Right.
You got to avoid the weird ones, because sometimes the weird ones will be like, man, I can get this house at like, 40 cents on the dollar. It's like, yeah, but then what are you going to do with it? Yeah. It's like, it's really weird.
That's interesting.
So we try to find like the ones that are just like your typical house in a typical neighborhood. Like those ones.
You know what to expect.
Yeah, and it's like the cool thing is like they're ultra liquid. Like people will say, well, real estate's not that liquid. Well, we talked about this a minute ago. Wholesalers specifically are the liquidity makers, right? And a single family home, I mean, they're in demand. Like, that, especially lately, like the inventory is really low. It's like all-time low. So it's like if I need to cash out on, 2 or 3 houses, like, give me 30 days and they'll be gone.
Yeah.
That quick.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I mean, eventually we're going to expand into doing more multifamilies and some other things, of course. But we got a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
You know, we love DealMachine. We love driving for dollars. We love marketing. And we know that that's the lifeblood of our business, guys. Like a business that doesn't have leads, think about this for a second, isn't a business at all.
There you go.
It's not.
That's a good nugget. That's a good one-liner right
Yeah,
there.
I mean, truly though, like a business without leads it's not a business. Like marketing is the lifeblood of real estate investing. It's the lifeblood. And when you do enough marketing, it gives you the ability to cherry pick the deals that you want to keep and wholesale the ones you don't. And it just opens up all those doors.
Yep.
You know, I tell this to a lot of my students, but like if you go out and you find a property that you can get a 15% discount on, you're probably not going to be able to wholesale that. You might be able to, but you're probably not going to. Yeah, you can turn it into a rental and leave some money into it. It's better than 100%, 100 cents on the dollar, right? But a fix and flip's almost impossible at those numbers. But if you go buy a property at 70 cents on the dollar, all those doors are wide open, man. You know what I'm saying?
Gives you options.
It gives you options, yeah. So if you are new and you're listening to this or you're watching this, just know that like you can eliminate, maybe not eliminate, but you can reduce your risk to almost zero by learning how to buy right. The cheaper that you buy your deals, the less risk you have. So like it seems kind of counterintuitive, but like the other day an investor called me and he's like, Dave, what's your what's your typical criteria when you're like looking at a deal? And I go, not to lose money. It was the first thing that came to my mind. And I'm like, that's not really my criteria, but that's what I'm thinking. And he goes, oh, I like that. And I go, yeah, it used to be like, oh, I need to make X. But now, because we're doing so many different things, it's like, hey, how could I screw this deal up 3 different ways and still break even? Am I low enough? And that's kind of how I think about it at this point. So we use an equation and, a simple equation, MAO formula, to figure out what that offer may be. But at the end of the day, like if we come up with an MAO and I look at it and I'm like, man, that's not, versus it's still kind of risky at that number, drop it down some more. Get it to a place to where you can basically eliminate your risk, to where if you mess up your ARV and you overvalue that number, and you mess up your repairs and you undervalue that number, so the product's not going to be worth what you thought, and you spent twice as much money on it, can you still break even? And maybe even make a little. Then you bought right. But if you don't break even or you lose money, it's not that you're a bad investor. Obviously, you should work on those 2 things and always try to improve, being better at running comps and getting ARVs and determining your repairs. But if you're buying right, who cares if you make those mistakes?
Right.
It's really cool, Yeah. So, guys, you make your money when you buy. You get paid when you sell. I mean, just let that sit in for a second, right? You make your money when you buy, and you get paid when you sell, right? So if you want to make money, you don't do it on the back end. You make your money on the buy, on the purchase, on the acquisition. So get in there low. Make low offers. I tell it to my students, don't chase deals. Don't start making higher offers if you're not getting deals. Keep them low, but just get better at the sales process and or talk to more people.
Have that patience.
Hence where DealMachine comes into play.
It really is a leads game. Like it's if you fill that funnel, like you said, with opportunities,
absolutely.
Even if your close rate's low to begin with, the better you get at that, the less leads it's going to take. But you got to start somewhere. You got to just fill up that pipeline. That's the best, lowest hanging fruit to go out there and do is to figure out how do you get those leads to begin with.
Absolutely. So we just closed a deal. Well, I shouldn't say we closed it. We got some good news on a deal this morning, and it's a deal we've been working since September of 18.
Wow.
So that's almost 3 years, right? 19, 20, 20. Yeah, we're almost in September. Yeah. So that's a 3-year-old lead. And the average deal that we do, we're not like doing 80 deals a month or anything crazy like that, but we're doing like 10. And here's the thing, we're not like trying to do 10. That's like the overflow, right? Like we're trying to buy like 3 to 5 rentals a month and maybe get a rehab or 2. Yeah. And everything else that comes in just ends up getting wholesaled, right? But the average deal that we put under contract, Matt, the average deal, take a guess. How long do you think it takes us?
For you guys to actually go through.
And that's 7 years of data, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the average time that the lead gets added into the system, not a prospect, a lead.
Oh, a lead. I thought you meant like an actual conversation.
To the time that we're able to get a contract on it.
Oh man, that's interesting. Average 6 months.
5. 5 months.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You were right on. It's only 4 to 6, but just call it 5.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means that the average lead that we put into the system, like they called us or we called them, takes 5 months to get under contract. And the reason is because we have to let them know that we don't need to buy it, which we tell them, but we are here to help. And we want to buy it, but we got to get a deal on it. And it often takes them that amount of time to figure out that the offer that we're making is, in fact, it's fair offer.
You're solving the problem.
It's low, but it's also fair. Yeah, and it just takes time to do that. Now, can we go run 8 appointments and get 1 or 2 of them locked up this month? Absolutely. And we do 2 or 3 a month like that. But like 6, 7-ish a month are coming from, on average, 5 months ago, right? And every year, and we're at basically, full-time at this at about 7 years at this point, every year we find that it's getting longer and longer because we now have leads that are in the system longer and longer,
so you get these
which
3-year-long,
which skews the numbers
cycles
even more, right?
Yeah.
So I tell all my students, and I'm going to tell everybody listening and watching right now, guys, you got to have patience in this game, right? The name of the game isn't necessarily to go get a property under contract right away. That's obviously a win, right? But the name of the game, like to be successful in the long term, is to fill the funnel.
Yep.
Literally, it's fill the funnel and then nurture the funnel. And if you nurture the funnel long enough, people will start falling, those deals will start falling down.
Yeah, and it takes consistent, really good action like that of having those conversations, and over time, that's where that that funnel builds up.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
man, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
I don't want to run too far.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Can you please tell people how to connect with you, how to follow up with you? I know
absolutely. Yeah, so I put together a free course with my partner Mike. I don't know, man, 5-6 years ago. Yeah. I think at this point we've had close to 25,000 people take it.
Wow.
So yeah, it's freewholesalecourse.com. It's about a 3-hour course. It's 100% free, and it's going to basically break down what wholesaling is, like the 101. How, where, when, why. And then beyond that, it's going to basically show you a bunch of the systems that we use in our business to do the marketing. Again, this is a marketing business. So DealMachine's like dead center, top of the list when you go in there. You're gonna see, hey, DealMachine, like we drive for dollars, guys. Like I've done 2 6-figure wholesale deals, and I got 1 more in my pipeline right now.
Hey.
And one of those 2, so 50% of my 6-figure deals have come from DealMachine.
Amazing.
Isn't that awesome?
Hearing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not boasting, like that's the truth, right? So we love DealMachine. Like, there's obviously lots of ways to go about, locating motivated sellers. But my favorite way is to locate the properties that are distressed, because then when you start making those calls, you often come across people that are also distressed. And really, what are we looking for? We're looking for a distressed property, or we're looking for a distressed person. But when you get both, hence
that's that motivated seller
DealMachine, that's the motivated seller that is going to not make you wait 5 months to a year or whatever to go get that contract. In that case 3. They're going to say, hey, I'm ready to go. Like, make me an offer, and when can we meet?
Awesome, man.
So.
Yeah. Well, hey, I again appreciate your time. Always love doing this. But yeah, make sure to follow up with David. He's, like I said, he's got everything going on YouTube. Your podcast is super highly reviewed and rated. The book, all that stuff. So I'll make sure that we link to that all below. But
cool.
Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, and to everybody, happy deal finding.